morning all. I stand on the protocols that have already been observed. I'm Kgotso, as I've been introduced, from the MBI, which is Business Intelligence, where we provide, or we are the research department of GGDA. We meet at an interesting time where the global economy is at turmoil, risks are quite elevated, and uncertainty. So if you think about 2-3 years ago, things that we thought were risk events have now materialized. Those with a risk background will know, if you build the risk model, you know, some events you say it's a 1 in 100 event or 1 in 1,000 event with a small probability of occurring. All those events have materialized, tariffs have been implemented, but geopolitics that we spoke about that were a risk have now materialized. But what is quite interesting is that even in the midst of this uncertainty, global trade continues. If you look at data for 2025, global trade reached about $35 trillion, the highest it has ever been in the midst of uncertainty, which then tells us, one, our supply chains are more nimble post-COVID. Companies have found ways to move products around, but there's still demand. So the world continues in the midst of this uncertainty. And if you look at the numbers as well around trade, developing markets are trading a lot more with the developing markets. If you look at 1994 to about 2014, developing markets, was about 40% trading among themselves. Now that number is above 60%, so we are moving in the right direction. If you look at South-South trade, which is your LATAM, Asia, Africa included, the growth in that trade is almost vertical. So developing countries are trading among themselves, which is what we want to see. And when we come back to Africa, normally at these forums when I speak, I would always say Africa does not trade with Africa, and there are many reasons, right? We spoke about infrastructure earlier, but I think the critical point is the trade routes were never developed for Africa to trade with Africa. It was to extract, and then we export. But where we are moving now is we need inter-Africa trade. The South-South trade that I spoke about has been driven mainly by regional integration in Asia, investment in infrastructure, making it easier to do business in those economies. That is why Asia is trading among themselves, and that is why we see a lot of exports moving in that region. That is the next phase. When I started, I said the world is at a turmoil, and with uncertainty, it means then that we need to trade with those that we know. It is through these engagements that we trade with those that we know. There's a lot of uncertainty, risk have increased, but also an important point that has been raised earlier is that there is capital. There is money. Those that are listed entities will know it's expensive to sit on capital. It's either you give it to the shareholder via dividends or you invest it back into the business. And capital says we want to invest. And it is through these engagements that we are going to see this investment taking place. Just to give you examples, we host a lot of these forums, but also we attend a lot of these forums with the JCCI, Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for across the countries. I think the past 12 months we did almost 10. Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Ghana more recently, many others. But what came out of those engagements is that, for example, I think it was the Tunisia or Algeria one. One gentleman stood up and said, look, there's a particular type of oil that I need. In my country, it's needed. And within the room, a gentleman stood up and said, I can source it for you. I can give you 2 containers. But within the room as well, there was a logistics person that says, hey, I can come in and link everything and get it to you in the shortest possible time at the best rate. So the messaging that I'm saying is these engagements are critical and they're important. And trade continues, as I've indicated, in terms of in terms of even in the midst of this uncertainty. Another important point is investment. You cannot grow without investment. We need this investment. Just to give you a sense and just to sell our province as well, if you look at FDI data for 2025, investment from outside the country coming into South Africa, we got in excess of 100 billion rands. If we look at Gauteng, out of that 100 billion, and we got in excess of 30 billion of that. But more recently, when we speak, people say, you're quoting old data. More recently, if you look at Q4, which is October to December, we received about 25 billion into the country. 9.8 billion of that in rents came from Gauteng. That's about 44%. So money continues to flow into Gauteng. Which sectors are receiving that money? It's broad-based sectors, it's real estate, and there's a reason why it's real estate. Any investment starts with a building most of the time. So therefore, real estate continues to attract, renewable energy continues to attract investment, manufacturing as well. So it's not just one sector. It's not mining, but it's a diverse number of sectors that are receiving this flow. Ideally, we want more, and it is through these engagements where we look at making it easier for you to do business. And as Marcus, our MC, has indicated, through Invest SA, that's the reason why they exist. So the FDI is quite important. Investment, trade is taking place. So in a nutshell, is the uncertainty won't go away. You can diversify risk, but you can't diversify it all. You can only manage it. And that's where we exist. That's why we are here to serve you and give you the solutions. Moving on to the next slide, which is, what is it that GGDA does? I go out and do a lot of public speaking, and somebody would say, we don't know what you guys do. We give you another example. I went to a rail conference last year, presented there. I'm from a banking side, investment banking environment. Post the presentation, everybody started calling me. Hey, we didn't know that institution exists. I said, hey, we're actually very close to APSA Capital or APSA Investment Banking. We are close to Investec. We're here in Senton. We can give you the solutions. And that's when the calls started to come. So it is through these engagements with all the diplomatic missions and the business people that we are saying, we are there, we exist, and we can provide solutions to your problems that you have. In a nutshell, what is it that GGDA does? The slides are not moving, but I'll continue. We're an implementing arm of the Gauteng Economic Development Department. Our role is to, as I've indicated, we are an implementing arm of Gauteng Economic Development. You can look at GGDA maybe in three ways, right? There's trade and investment, which I'll touch on. There's economic infrastructure development. CEO spoke about it. We need to invest in infrastructure, but also develop the township economies, right? We need to pull everyone up as we attract investment. And business intelligence, that's where I come from, which is really research more than anything. If we go to the next slide. So we've got focus sectors that we look at. The sectors now have increased to 12. I think post the conference, we are going to launch the Gauteng economic plan. That plan has 12 sectors that are critical. Through those sectors, we are looking at attracting investment, creating jobs, but more importantly, growing this economy. These are sort of some of the high focus sectors that we are looking at. Energy, transport. In energy, it's mostly renewable energy. I told you when I spoke about FDI, a lot of the investment that is coming through is going into renewable energy, and that's where we want Gauteng to move to. ICT, digital services. A lot of data centers are also coming here. The world is moving towards AI. Data centers are important, are going to drive where the world is going. And that's where the capital is also going, if you look at in terms of investment. Tourism and hospitality. Tourism matters. If you look at tourism, those that are coming to South Africa for tourism activities, the numbers continue to rise. Gauteng gets a bigger share of that. Agro-processing, agribusiness, cannabis industry, construction, automotive and aerospace and defense, financial services. It's important also to note, financial services, where we are in Senton, we've got some of the large international banks that are present here, and the solutions are there, the funding is there, capital is there. At the conference that I was at, for example, on the rail, one of the banks, London or international banks, were saying, we've got appetite, we also have the capital to fund projects, as long as it's not in fossil fuel, but we are going to fund it. So therefore, there is money out there. It's about going to bankable projects. We can go to the next slide. Okay. It's fine. Let's continue with our presentation. So, as I've indicated, a lot of the work that we do, as the previous one. Okay. So in a nutshell, this sums up what we do as GGDA. The first one is investment promotion and development. We identify and promote investment opportunities, engage foreign ministries. As I've indicated, since I started here in April last year, a lot of these engagements take place 2-3 per month. And these engagements matter. Investment facilitation, that is when we help you, as Mark has said, to help you fix and make sure that the bank or your project is bankable, but also bring you closer also to the funding institutions. Business retention and aftercare, that's quite important. If you are frustrated in your business with certain things, then we come in, we can say, well, let's help you. Where is the bottleneck? Is it a municipality level? Is it a provincial government level? Let's try and engage and solve that problem, because we need that investment. As much as we want to attract it, we want to also retain it into the province. And trade promotion. Through trade promotion is we need to trade with Africa. South Africa and Africa needs to trade among themselves, and therefore trade promotion becomes quite important. Helping SMMEs gain access to new markets, that is quite critical in the work that we do. So the work that we do, it's these 4 columns, but it's way much more than that. Get in touch with us, we are quite responsive, and we've got Marcus who's very responsive in what we do. So in a nutshell, this is what we do as GGDA. We want the investments into the province, but also we want to attract the right investment in those sectors. We are available to engage, and post this discussion, we can have a chat and see how we can solve those solutions. Thank you for your time.